Previously on Sodor, the modern years.
Did you find something, Duncan? Is it unfinished business?
You could call it that, aye. She's not finished living yet.
We can rebuild her, sir. We have the technology.
I see. Would you like us to do so?
Yes, please, sir.
Then we'll make it so.
At best, I can only remember fragments of my past. Stop! We need to stop!
Okay.
I'm going to crash on the bridge. I'm sorry, I can't go on. I'm not really useful at all, am I?
So you're broken down now? Were you not just rebuilt?
I'm sorry, it's the bridge. I couldn't go on knowing I crashed off it.
Oh, I understand. Didn't force yourself, Adeline. It's no bother, really.
Duncan shunted Adeline in front of his trucks, and they departed.
Try not to think about it too much. There's some good views from this line. Should help take your mind off things.
If we're doing that, may I ask you something?
By all means.
I'm curious about your livery. All steam engines on this railway are red, except for you and Duke.
Aye, I understand his is a heritage livery. It's what he wore on his previous railway.
Yes, but what about yours?
Oh, I used to be painted red. Don't try to make this about me.
Pipe down, Duncan. Can't you see they're exhausted? You're the improper engine. Rocking and rolling about all the time. Rude, too.
Excuse me? I didn't have to pick you up, you know.
I'm sorry. Just had some memories come back. Didn't expect it.
If you say so.
Awkward silence fell. After a few minutes, Duncan spoke again.
I'm not surprised that's how you remember me. Looking back, you may be right.
But you seem to have mellowed out since then. I mean, this is the second time you've rescued me.
Oh, I found something that's made me laugh and ease up. There was a comedian from New York called George Carlin. His way of looking at things resonated with me. I wear this livery in his memory.
Was it his favorite color or something?
No, well, I don't know. But back in those days, a thin clergyman wrote books about us, and they were adapted for television. George Carlin dubbed it in the United States. This is the livery I had in the show.
I see.
Adeline replied, hope sprung within her boiler.
Books about us, you say? Was I in any of them?
As I recall, you specifically asked to be left out of them due to the secret work you were doing.
Oh.
While we're talking about me, I should mention I didn't really stop on that bridge to rescue you. I needed to lay some of my own ghosts to rest. You see, Rusty played a wee joke on me some years ago, after I'd been rude to Ivo Hugh. 'Twas before I discovered Mr. Carlin. They told me a ghost story and had my driver play some sound effects while I was up there. It scared me. I even imagined I'd seen a ghostly engine.
So you weren't looking for me?
No, I thought it was another joke. You see, my wheels still wobble from Rusty's prank when I'm up there at night, despite it being over a decade ago. I was tired of all that. I just wanted to put it to rest. So I pressed on and, well, you know what happened.
Well, I'm glad you did.
So am I.
After reaching Croven's gate, Duncan shunted Adeline into the workshops. Given what had happened, she needed a full inspection. Later that day, Sir Handel was having a drink in Skarloey Yard when Harris arrived.
Hello, I think I saw Adeline going by earlier. How is she? Haven't had a chance to catch up with her yet.
She's not in a good way. Just the thought of crossing that bridge gave her a breakdown. She doesn't remember her accident. In fact, she barely remembers us.
That's no good.
You don't say. 42 years she was stuck in there, with only that accident to think about. Perhaps if you MOD people hadn't been so secretive, that wouldn't have happened.
You can't blame us for that.
Oh yes I can. We could have rescued her earlier, maybe within days. But thanks to your lot smoking daggone nonsense, she was left lying there.
Vulcan?
Even now we still don't know what happened. She's traumatised by those events. If you consider yourself any sort of friend of hers, you'd forget the secrecy and tell us what happened so we can help her get over it.
Vulcan, that's enough.
Sorry, Grandpuff.
I don't know what happened that night. I was in the corner of the quarry, recharging. Couldn't see what was going on.
Then why didn't you say so? Don't tell me. Official secrets?
Vulcan, watch your tongue. You may be angry, but Corporal Harris here is a guest on our rails. Such behaviour would never suit his grace.
Sorry, Harris. I think I'd better be going.
Vulcan does have a point, by the way. Adeline does deserve to know what happened.
I agree, she does.
Tell me, what do you know about us?
I was briefed on all of you en route here.
You know, I spent a few years hidden underground just like Adeline. It wasn't easy. I didn't sleep for all of that time, just most of it.
What? But that would have been, well...
Indeed, but in those moments, one thing gave me hope. I knew my friends were out there, and that they wouldn't forget me.
That must have been a comfort.
It was, but Adeline didn't even have that. She probably didn't know to whom she was calling for help over the last few decades.
I think I can see where you're going with this.
It did take a bit of time for me to recover after I was rescued, even with that hope that kept me going. If we can find out what happened to Adeline, I think it would help her heal.
Understood, sir. I'll have a word with my CO and see what I can do.
Thank you.
Duke replied, and he departed. That evening, the engines returned to the sheds after the day's work was done.
Are you alright, Adeline?
I think so. At least, Mr. Hugh told me my pipes and valves are fine.
And how are you feeling?
I don't know. I can't help but feel my accident will happen again.
Well, Percy's going to be coming by in a couple of days. You could ask him about it then. Perhaps that'll set your mind at rest.
I hope so.
Wait, what?
Well, Rusty's ghost story did have to come from somewhere. We know that Harris was codenamed Raven because of his black livery. Adeline was number 7 at the time and codenamed Swan, so Goose would have been given his codename based on his numbers or livery.
And you think that's Percy?
7 swans are swimming, 6 geese are laying, and 5 golden rings. We also know Goose is standard gauge, so it's not Duncan.
That actually makes sense.
Rusty, didn't Percy put you up to that ghost prank on Duncan?
Yes, he did.
Rusty replied, and he thought back.
So we'd need to think of a prank to convince Duncan.
I beg your pardon, but may I make a suggestion?
Of course, Percy.
What if you scared him with some sort of ghost story? I mean, I did that to Thomas once, after he teased me about believing in them. Even pretended to be one myself. You did say Duncan jeered about trucks haunting Ivo Hugh, didn't you?
That's correct.
Are there any ghost stories about freak accidents? Some incident no amount of experience would help with.
Now that you mention it, I think I did hear such a story. I see what you're getting at.
Great. Now, I'm afraid I have to get going, while my line's clear. Good luck with it.
Well, now that you mention it, he did seem rather satisfied when I mentioned I knew that story.
Rusty said, once he'd finished recounting that conversation to the others.
But this is Percy we're talking about.
Is he a green engine, with 4 wheels and red stripes?
That's him, alright.
I recall meeting him often down here.
You mean he was bringing in munitions?
No, those came from the mainland. Percy brought in some sort of ore, I can't recall what. It was in special containers, heavy ones.
That sounds like it then.
It may not be that simple. Official Secrets Act, remember? Adeline may not even been allowed to tell us as much as she just did.
Oh.
Well, it can't hurt to ask. I mean, he is a friendly sort.
You said he'd be here on Friday.
He and Duck take turns to come up from Tidmouth. They bring up broken trucks and take repaired ones back. Duck got them last Friday. I saw him while waiting for Pip and Emma. So it's Percy's turn this week. That's your chance, I think.
Adeline smiled. Despite her rough day, she couldn't help feeling hopeful. The next day, Adeline volunteered to shunt trucks and coaches at Croven's Gate. Although she couldn't cross that iron bridge and go around the loop, she could still be useful here. It also ensured that she wouldn't miss Percy when he arrived. She did venture up the line as far as the first station, just to deliver trucks. The other engines didn't mind having a station pilot. It meant they could have more rest between trains. Adeline did the same the next day, Friday, and kept watch for a small green tank engine.
Well, you won't have too long to wait. Here she is now.
Hello, Percy. It's good to see you again.
I can say the same, Adeline. So you do remember me?
I recall we were good friends. Hearing mention of you a couple nights ago brought some of it back to me. Are you still working on that Far Cry branch line?
Indeed I am. It's as busy as ever there. May I ask, do you remember a man named Jack Weston?
That name sounds familiar. Yes, he was my driver. Is he...
He passed away in 1976. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
But a few years before that, he told me what happened to you. Now, I was ordered to tell the whole story, if you asked me. Ivo here tells me you do want to know.
You can say that again.
How much do you remember?
You may as well guess. I don't know what I don't know.
I'll go from the beginning then. It started with my friend Thomas.
Thomas the tank engine. I do remember you telling me about him.
Back in 1952, he had an accident at an old lead mine on his branch line. It had been closed down years earlier, and the old sidings were used to store trucks. Thomas ignored a danger board, and the tracks over an old mine shaft collapsed beneath him. I was still the station pilot at Knapford back then. Gordon already had steam up, and was sent up with a winch to secure Thomas. I followed the breakdown train in a work crew. As it turned out, Gordon was able to winch Thomas free on his own. After they'd gone, the workmen and I went in to check the damage and make sure it wouldn't get worse. It was already late afternoon when we started. We weren't done until after dark. Just as we were packing up, I noticed that some of the rocks we'd been working with were glowing. Just faintly. I wouldn't have noticed it if we'd been working in daylight. A couple of days later, the Fat Controller came to see me. It turned out that the glowing rocks had something called uranium in them, so the mine would be opened again, as a few people were interested in it. I was glad it was useful, but didn't think much of it. I just got on with my work.
Percy, did you say that happened in 1952?
That's right.
Interesting. You see, the MOD started negotiating to buy our slate quarry in 1953. I remember our controller mentioning it.
But you said that the quarry was purchased in 1960.
The way I heard it, they were long and detailed negotiations.
That sounds about right. I was on Thomas's branch line by then. So Colonel Westbrook approached me in 1960, and I agreed to help out. My crew had to sign the Official Secrets Act, both for themselves and on my behalf. I think you know the next bit, Adeline.
Yes, you brought the uranium ore up in nuclear flasks, and I took them to the quarry and shunted them for Harris, along with the munitions from the mainland.
So that's what all the secrecy was about? Just some ore and munitions?
Now, Sir Handel, both of those are very dangerous materials, and as such, secrecy may be warranted.
It was. Information about the quarry leaked, so someone decided to sabotage it to embarrass the MOD and the government.
Colonel Westbrook launched an investigation. He asked me to ask the other engines to help.
Was that why you asked Peter Sam to shunt those trucks?
Trucks? Oh yes, those were bait for the saboteurs. Each one had a tracking device inside. When they took one to put their bomb in it, Colonel Westbrook was able to find their base of operations. But one saboteur got away. I remember now. I had just taken a munitions train to the quarry.
Good evening, Adeline.
Evening, sir. How did your investigation go?
We got most of...
Sorry to interrupt, sir, but can you hear ticking?
Yes, seems to be coming from the sidings.
It's in the trucks. Driver, we need to reverse now. Please switch me into that siding.
Adeline, what are you doing?
We don't have time to search those trucks. If it goes off here, it'll set off the munitions. We need to get it clear.
You there, call Mr. Sam. Tell him there's going to be a runaway.
Have them divert me towards that old iron bridge. Driver, you'll need to set my regulator and jump clear.
I cannot.
Jump, or I'll bump you out of my cab. I need you to get to that bridge ahead of me. Loosen one of the rails. Whatever's ticking in there will do less damage at the bottom of that gorge.
Goodbye, Adeline.
Goodbye, Jack. Sorry, Reneus.
What? Driver!
That's the last thing I remember about it.
So, you actually chose to have that accident?
Yes, and I think I'd make the same choice again.
It sounds like you prevented a disaster.
She did. Are you alright, Adeline?
It's a lot to take in. You said that Jack told you all of that.
Yes, he told me the whole thing just between the two of us. He didn't want you to be forgotten.
Just between the two of you? But didn't you tell it to a radio show?
Oh, that was a little while later. My driver told me about a ghost train he'd seen on TV. Thomas teased me for believing in it, as it was made up. But after I got him back, I realized it could work the other way around. Most people think ghost stories are made up, so I could hide a true story among them. I wanted to make sure you were remembered in some way, Adeline.
Thank you, Percy. You are a good friend.
Thank you. I hope this helps.
So do I.
Well, my line's clear. I'd better be going, but I'll come by when I can.
I'm looking forward to it.
By the way, Sir Handel, Harris hopes this makes things right. I was ordered to deliver that message too.
I've got to go collect some trucks.
Adeline went back to her work. As she'd said, it was a lot to take in. Her conversation with Percy had helped, but all the same, she couldn't help wondering what else she had lost of her past.